Well, welcome everybody here in the Beautiful You community. I am so excited to bring Kelly Page to you today. Kelly is a certified health coach and meditation teacher. She helps women over 40 drop weight in mind and body through diet, mindset, and lifestyle shifts so that they can move and have more energy, balance, and joy in their lives. Today, she's going to be sharing a topic on how to keep up your energy and weight down as a woman over 40. I'm, how old am I? I'm 44. I think once we hit 40, we're like, nah, we don't need to keep track anymore.
Right.
But it has been a challenge. And actually my challenge started when I was 32, where things have just been like chaotic for me. And a lot of it has been mindset, and having a 1,001 excuses in my excuse bucket. And I've had to really take a tap into who I am, what makes me tick, take inventory of all my thoughts and figuring out what's serving me, what's not, and start, like decluttering a closet. It's been quite a mess. So tell me, Kelly, how do we keep our energy up and our weight down after we hit the 40 mark?
Yeah, it's a crazy age that it can even start in your 30s. And this period I'm talking about is kind of perimenopause area. And it is the years leading up to menopause, which is a year without a period. But things can start shifting in our bodies as early as our 30s. And doctors don't spend a lot of time talking to women about this. I mean, we have 9 minutes is the statistical average right now of how much time a doctor will spend with you. And in 9 minutes, there's no time to go into tell me what you're eating. How much stress is in your life right now? How are you sleeping? What's your day to day? And all of that stuff is what really helps us, especially at this age. So that's why I have a special fondness for this time period, because I felt the changes too. And I didn't know what was going on. My energy levels were dropping. I was eating the same, working out the same, but starting to gain weight and not feel good. And my thyroid started going off. So I am just really passionate about helping people at this time with a variety of things that the doctors don't have time to talk to you about, that I think can really help you even avoid the doctor and feel good. And it's some of this stuff is, it's simple and free. So I say, let's dive in.
Absolutely. I know when I was 32, the doctors told me I was premenopause. My estrogen was in the bottom of the bucket. I was a hot mess, and I was in excruciating pain. They never asked a lot of questions. They never sent me for additional testing besides your clinical blood work samples and what have you. But I don't know. I felt like I was knocking on death's door, and I found out that the stress in my life was actually causing all of that. And my periods were probably 45 days in between. So every month I was always having this freak out session thinking I was pregnant again. I'm like, I can't do this again. Like my kids are older and I didn't want to start all over. And even right now I'm like hard knocks, like, no, but I'm sure you're going to be sharing some really great tips with us today, that things that I've probably have adapted in my own personal journey, that I've been able to get my period more regularly. Like I have a tracker and I'm like bang on to the day.
Yes, that's fabulous.
But it took time to get to that point to fix my body. So tell us your...
Exactly. I had a similar story. I was in my early 40s when things just started to kind of go off the rails. I was in a high-powered corporate job at the Discovery Channel. I was there for 14 years, and then my adrenals were off and my hormones were off and my period was missing. And it's all these just little incremental things that you don't think much about. And then suddenly your energy, my energy was in the tank, and I was just climbing the corporate ladder though. And I had a life is short moment when my mom passed away, and in the middle of it, and I was thinking, what am I doing? But I was gunning for this next level promotion so that when my big boss finally offered it to me, he's like, congratulations, you're our new muckety muck. And I said, I can't accept. And I quit. And I moved to Paris on the spot. I turned down the promotion, quit the job, and said, it's time to get healthy. And I moved to Paris, and it was a place I'd always dreamed of living, but I never thought, who am I to do that? And then suddenly I thought, I am the person to do that. And this is why I've been working so hard. And in Paris, they just have a different outlook on life. They eat their meals differently. They spend 3 hours in a meal. The meal is the destination for them. It's not something you do on the way, or you grab and you're eating in the car. Like it's an experience. So in France, I really kind of regained my health and got everything back to square one. And then I studied nutrition. And then I came back and said, okay, well, I can't hoard all of this with everyone. I need to share. You don't have to move to Paris to get your health back, but there are things you can do. So I will hopefully give people a few things to start with, unless you're ready to go to Paris. And that is something I highly recommend, but you don't have to.
I'll tell my husband, see you later, honey. I got to go get my health back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest place I like to start, and it's the quote easiest in that there's no supplements involved. You don't need to go to the doctor. You don't need a prescription. And that's the diet. Because you can start with your fork and you're eating anyway. So it's just really fine tuning what it is you're putting in your mouth. Because that's your food, that's your fuel, right? I mean, that's your energy. You're putting good food in, your energy is going to be higher. I'm sure you've eaten something before and you've just felt horrible afterwards and needed a nap. So really fine tuning your food at this age can just pay huge dividends. And if there's only one thing you take away from this talk and only one thing you do this week, this year, sugar.
Ooh.
Reducing your sugar intake. It's so important. And especially at this age, because we become more insulin resistant after 40. And our digestive enzymes also are reduced in our stomach. So we have a harder time breaking things down. So I don't know about you, but in my 20s and 30s, I could eat fast food and it was fine. It was just something I did. And after 40, oh no, it's like a 3-day hangover without the alcohol. And alcohol is this whole other thing, because that gives you, I know for me, I barely drink now because I can't process the sugar anymore. Do you have that experience as well?
I haven't had any alcohol for quite a few years. And then last summer, our neighbor invited us over and he strongly would not take no for an answer, encouraged us to have a glass of wine with him. And so I'm like, all right, I'll have a glass of wine. And about 3 sips in, I had the worst heartburn. I was like, I can't do this. And then he's like, oh, I'll just mix you up some Alka-Seltzer or something. I'm like, yeah, that just sounds like what?
Yeah. It's really sad. It's we're really especially sensitive to it after the age of 40, and breaking those things down. It's just really hard. So one of the big areas I work with women on is the blood sugar balance. So keeping that blood sugar stable is harder, but more important than ever now, because, the basic biology is when we eat food, especially sugar and processed carbs, the glucose comes in, it converts to glucose. Insulin takes the glucose, ushers it into the cells, and then we use that for energy later. Ideally, it's a perfect system.
In our 20s.
Too much. Yes, exactly. Right. But when we're overloading with the sugars and the carbs, that overloads our cells. And then we have the insulin is trying to find a place for it, and there's nowhere for it to go. So we get stored as fat. And where it usually gets stored is around our middle. So you may have heard of the midlife middle, this horrible terminology. But that's where it gets stuck now, because there's no more good cells for it to go. So it gets stored as fat. So it's really, really important to watch our sugar intake. And some people say, oh, I don't eat sugar anymore. I don't do the refined sugar. But the carbs are the things. And I hate to demonize any food, and I don't demonize any food, but we just can't break down processed carbs, refined carbs as well anymore. And when I'm talking about it, those are the white flours, the breads, because those are sugar spikes as well. And when our digestive enzymes are lower, so we can't break that stuff down, And then we also become more insulin resistant. It's the whole hormonal balance or imbalance we have at this age too. So with the insulin not helping us, that sugar just gets stored and we can't burn it off. And that gets stored as fat.
Yeah. Our body's
It's a
way
sad
of trying
cycle.
to protect us.
Yeah, right? It's trying to protect us, but it's just not easy. So the three areas, so with sugar off the plate and refined carbs, where you focus are your fat, fiber, and protein. Those are the three I always recommend having on your plate. I know for me, it took me a really long time to learn to eat enough protein. I wasn't eating enough protein. Right. And as women, I think we feel like, oh, I just need this little tiny bite and I'm good, but that's not filling you up.
No. And actually, I've noticed this in the last number of months because I've been on a new journey of hitting a goal. And one of the things that I've noticed like dramatically with my weight loss goal is the fact that if I up my protein, I'll actually lose weight. So, but if my protein was low, the scale goes up and I'm like, I don't understand. Like I didn't eat much. Oh, I did eat a little different yesterday or this week or whatever. And I missed that additional proteins and it makes all the difference. And just, I don't even know the science behind it. I just like, oh, this is what I'm noticing in my body. If I don't have that protein in, it is not serving me. So up your protein.
That is something I see across the board with the women I work with. They don't eat enough protein and even just healthy fats, because our brain is made up of majority of fats. And I know for me, when I got my protein and fat levels just right, my brain clarity improved dramatically. I could think better. I could focus. My memory was better just by upping my protein and my fat. And when I say fats, that can be avocados and nuts, all of those things, and then protein, there's just so many to choose from. And when I say fiber, those are your carbs. Those are your healthy carbs. You can be healthy greens and sweet potatoes and all of those. So getting those three in balance for me was a game changer. Cause I used to tell people, oh, I have to eat every 2-3 hours. I just have to, I'm hungry all the time. Well, I'm hungry all the time because I wasn't eating enough protein and fat. And so when I got that dialed in, I don't snack anymore. I never thought a day would occur that I wouldn't snack. I'm not hungry. It's not like I'm depriving myself. When my meals are balanced, I have 3 meals a day and I don't think about it. I don't think about snacks in between.
Yeah. I used to be the same where I'd always have like a bag of nuts or a bag of something in my purse.
Yes.
Always. So yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Yes. So getting the fat, fiber, protein and your right levels dialed in, it makes such a difference. And those are the biggies I have. I hate overloading people with too many food things, but I just say, dropping the refined sugars and the processed carbs, keeping the blood sugar level balanced is key. And then just making sure your fat, your fiber, and your protein are on your plate in the right portions. And sometimes you have to play a little bit with what's going to work for you. But ideally, you feel satiated and full, and protein and fat are going to make you feel full. That was my missing piece. I was never full. Like if I just eat vegetables, I love vegetables and I love eating them, but I'm hungry in an hour. So the protein and the fat, having enough of those with the vegetables really kept me going. So that is the big piece with diet. Of course, there's a million other things to talk about, but as far as broad strokes at this age, watching your sugar levels, your carb levels, keeping that plate balanced, key. And then the other huge area is stress, because stress also, when you're really stressed, your cortisol raises. And when your cortisol elevates, you want to eat more. And when you eat more, and when you're stressed and your cortisol is up, the thing that you're craving are those carbs and sugars I was just talking about.
Comfort food.
Yes, because your body wants a quick hit. There actually is biology to it. It wants a quick hit of energy because it thinks you're needing to flee from a bear or someone or something quick. So again, it takes up residence around the middle. So people don't often put stress into the weight category. They're just like, oh yeah, I know I need to relax, but it's the blood sugar as well, because cortisol raises blood sugar too. So you can keep blood sugar down by both the diet as well as stress. And I think a lot of people forget about that stress component, and it's huge. Have you noticed that as well?
Oh, for sure, love that. Back when I got sick and the doctors told me I was premenopause, my naturopath said it was all my symptoms was caused from stress. And stress can affect us in two different ways, whether we want the comfort foods and we want to just indulge and satisfy our lack of control of our situation, or we don't eat, we forget to eat. And for me, the stress literally made it, I was eating, I thought I was doing everything right. But my body just started shutting down. So I was over 200 pounds at that time, and I was showing up anorexic because my body was just repelling all the nutrients. So it wasn't actually digesting the food the way my body was intended to do it. So it was like it was food that had to heal my body, and I had to learn how my body responded to specific foods. Because what's healthy, there's a lot of healthy foods out there, but they're not good for everybody. So you have to learn kind of what your body thrives on, what's the best fuel for your tank, right? And you got to experiment and be a really good listener as to how your body's responding.
So true. It's so true. Just getting quiet. That's the other kind of flip side of the stress piece, is getting quiet and being able to hear yourself. A lot of times we just kind of move through them. Oh, I need to eat. I need to do the thing. And it's like, oh no, how do I feel? Like, oh yeah, my stomach, it's kind of in knots. So developing that can take some time. So that's good that you eventually got to the place where I'm sure you can listen very well to your body now, and you know all the signs and what everything means, and like, oh, that's a reaction.
Yeah, sometimes I ignore them. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there's that.
Body. No, we're eating this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, stress is amazing. I mean, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and it's something like 1.2 thoughts per second. I mean, it's a wonder we get anything done with that kind of chatter.
Just to show you how amazing we are.
We are really amazing, especially women. I feel like we have so many balls in the air, and we are caregivers and nurturers, and we usually care for everyone before us, and then we get the dregs of what's left. And that's often when our health suffers, is we don't know how to say no, and we definitely put ourselves last, and because it's everyone else first. And that's the old thing about putting your oxygen masks on first so you can serve other people. But stress doesn't have to be bad. It's our reaction to the stress that is the key. So, I mean, stress is great in that if, again, there's the bear running towards you, you want your cortisol to be high, because when your cortisol is high, you get a rush of an adrenaline, so you can run. It's actually fascinating. Our DNA is hardwired that within 5 seconds of a threat, your body automatically starts producing all of these different systems. So the adrenaline rush, there's also a glucose rush. It's similar to eating 5 Snicker bars.
Wow.
When you get adrenaline. Yeah, it's crazy. And then systems will shut down in your body automatically within 5 seconds. Your immune system slows, your reproductive system, because they're assuming you're not going to be making babies if someone's attacking you. Your heart rate starts increasing, and the blood flow goes from your body to your extremities so that you can run or fight if you need to. It's fascinating. I mean, your body is trying to support you, but the problem is most of us aren't being chased by bears on a regular basis. And your body doesn't know the difference between real stressors and, an annoying boss, or you're really not liking, the traffic today. So all of those stressors can occur, and it puts your body into the fight or flight mode. And when it's in this fight or flight mode, you're not digesting your food, your immune system is lower, you're more susceptible to inflammation and diseases and all of these other things because it thinks you're ready to move, which can be good, but you just need to make sure that all of your stressors are really worthy. You want things to work when you are being chased, but if it's Tuesday traffic, you really have to learn how to balance out that stressor.
Yeah, I just stay home.
That is a great way to do it.
That's one area I need to work on, because I can grow horns and a tail when I'm on the road.
There's something about traffic. I hear you. I live in Los Angeles, and man, we are in it and we are not happy.
Well, I can't even imagine, because our traffic probably isn't even comparable. You're probably like, what are you complaining about if you were to drive over here?
We all have stressors like that.
But it's may I say it, the stupidity of some people. I'm like, we're all needing to get somewhere. Like, what makes you think that your day is so much more important than mine?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so keeping that stress in check is just really important. And I will talk to people who say, oh, yeah, no, I don't really have that much stressors. But it's these low-lying things like the traffic, like the boss, like I don't have anything to eat, and they pile up. And so you don't even notice your heightened sense of, I even ask people, like, show me how you breathe, because that is a huge indicator of how you even handle stress, if you're stressed, and how you handle it. And what's crazy is that most people don't breathe right. I know I didn't breathe right for years. I'll invite everyone to take a big inhale right now and just put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, and tell me which rises. Everyone take a big inhale right now. And then exhale. Do one more for good measure in case you weren't ready. One more inhale. And then exhale. So which hand moved more? Your hand on your chest or your belly? Well, you are an expert, of course, you know, but for many of us, I used to be the chest breather.
Me too.
I would always I'm like, and even when I needed a big breath, I'm like, okay, I take one here, but you can feel what, that's
sometimes
how
though I'm not that good. I have to be mindful.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that, like, I'll gasp for air. It's like, did I just stop breathing? Like, why did I have to gasp for a breath of air? Like, so sometimes that happens to me too. So,
well, it's good. It's all about the noticing. It's all about the noticing. It's being mindful. How is your food? Are you food reacting in your body? How are you breathing? Because this is shallow breathing. You can't get as much breath in when you breathe into your chest. And that is what you do when you're overheating. You pant, right? You pant from up here. And so if you ever need a quick de-stressor or get back into your body, put both hands on your belly and just breathe into that area. Breathe in and out. And man, that's a game changer. I mean, that's something you can do for free. I do that in traffic all the time. I do it everywhere, of just a few long, slow, deep breaths into the belly. And there's also research about extending your exhale longer than your inhale, any amount. There are many different patterns, but everyone's breathing style is different. But extending the exhale actually sends a message to your brain, to the parasympathetic nervous system, that everything's okay. We're going to relax now. But this message that up there, it's like, oh, we need to run. So
I need a paper bag.
Yeah, exactly. You see how people do that when they're
I used to do that in as a teenager, because I had a lot of stress, and so the anxieties would just overtake you, right? And the doctors then told me to breathe into a paper bag, which were really easy to find back then. You try finding one of those now.
That's actually a good point. That's actually a really good point. So just taking that breath is huge. So it's good that you realize how to do that too.
When I was sick, the naturopath, I was frustrated because I was overweight, and I was frustrated because I was eating all the right things and nothing was working, and I wanted to exercise, but I was in so much pain, and I had so much inflammation in my body. And I just couldn't move. I could barely get up the stairs without stopping and catching my breath. Like I was in that much pain. And the doctor, I was sharing my frustration, and he's like, you know what? You just give yourself a break. You do not need to move your body. Just lay in your bed and just practice your breathing. It was this, I'm like, it just literally set me free. And I'm like, I don't need to exercise. Okay, I ain't gonna do that one forever. But to learn, like I had to really, that was, I guess the turning point for me was the learning that breath work and learning how to just listen and be present with myself and to really examine where the oxygen was going, and allowing all my systems to kind of engage the oxygen that was coming out of into my body. And it was like a really therapeutic, very therapeutic.
It's amazing how when we're given permission to relax, our body will fight it. You probably didn't do it day one. You're like, oh, I'm relaxed. And you probably fought it for a little while.
Supposed to be running a marathon.
Well, it is interesting, especially at this age. We can over exercise. It is absolutely a thing. If our adrenals, my adrenals were shot, and if our cortisol is too high, exercise will do the opposite. It will not help us. So you do. This is the age to be mindful. And what's great is, I don't know about you, but after I turned 40, I cared less about what everyone was thinking and saying and doing, and fear of missing out. And it's like, none of that matters. And just, I got more in touch with what was going on in my body. And again, how everything has a reaction, whether it's food, whether it's breath, whether it's a person. And it's just, how are you going to take that in? And that's the other part of the whole mindset and stress piece, is what are you telling yourself? Like, what's going on in your head? What are the thoughts that are constantly on repeat? With the 60 to 80,000 thoughts, they say the majority of them are negative and repetitive. That always breaks my heart, because this should be your cheerleader. I mean, yes. I know how I hear women speak to their children and to dogs, and they're like, hey, you're the best, and look at the good boy. But man, when they talk to themselves, like, oh, never good enough. And why can't you stick to a diet? And why can't you do this and that? And I just want us to share the same love that we give to so many other people and our animals with ourselves, because we're number one. And the more that our kids can see the love that we have for ourselves and how we become unflappable with the various things that occur, the better role model we're going to be for them as well.
Absolutely. It's like coming back to that oxygen mask, right? We can't pour from an empty cup, but we can. That's the crazy part, is that if we're not going to fill our own cup to be able to bless and honor other people around us, if our cup is empty, we're pouring out negativity. We're pouring out that frustration. We're not as patient. We're not as understanding of the situations. We're always jumping to conclusions because we're just like, gotta solve it quick because on to the next thing, right? Like we just got all these, like we're not stopping and pausing and giving ourselves the time and space and grace that we need in order to be able to extend it to others. As much as we have that nurturing capability, it is short-lived when we have an empty cup.
It's true. And it's amazing. Kids do pick up on that. They pick up on your mood and your attitude, and when you're low energy and a little snippy. So one of the things I love about just the deep breathing is just practicing it when you need a moment. If you're in a hard conversation, just doing a deep inhale and exhale, it just really can recalibrate. And, meditation is another one of my huge favorites, which is an extension of breath work, of breathing. And, it's resting your attention on a single point of focus. And for me, the breath is easy. And I hear so many people say, oh, I can't meditate. There's too many things going on in my head. And I said all of those things. But I think the point that people sometimes miss is it's just quieting. It's just getting into your body. It's following your breath in and out. So that's all you do, is you watch your breath, your inhale and your exhale. And then you're going to have a thought. It's not if you have a thought, it's when you have a thought, you're like, oh, I'm thinking. And then you're like, oh, but I'm breathing. So I'm coming back to the breath. I'm thinking, breath. And what you're really doing is building this comeback muscle. It's the muscle that says, oh, I'm not going to engage with this thing over here. I'm breathing. And that building that muscle is what is priceless, because you take that into anything. You take that into a conversation with someone and you can build a comeback muscle there. Like, oh, I'm going to take a moment and pause and really listen. And it's just another way to also get into your body. Like we're saying, all of this is this mindfulness of how can you be present in your body to really know what's going on, know what it's affecting you. And then just, oh, I'm breathing. Okay, I'm just going to be here. And it's just that break. And I call it kind of that pattern interrupt. It's just, you're just going to interrupt like, ooh, I'm super frazzled right now. What's going on? I'm like, oh, okay, let me just take a breath. Oh, I'm a little nervous. And people who have the thoughts when they're meditating, I sometimes tell them to categorize them. I know for me, I'm a huge scheduler. I am constantly scheduling. I'm the past, the future. It's like, no, Kelly, now all I have right now is this present moment. Like, what's going on right here? And if I do find I'm constantly scheduling a meditation, I will make sure that I schedule before I sit down to meditation and like kind of empty my thoughts so that I can really be present. And man, do I show up as a different person after just a few minutes of sitting and breathing quietly.
So true. So true. It really leaves room for so much more creativity and understanding and perspective, right? Like, and helps us navigate the day-to-day stresses when you can get right with yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there's many people who find things meditative, like gardening or cooking or sports and that sort of thing. But meditation, I love, because if you're in the middle of a big meeting, it's kind of hard to whip out your tennis racket and start playing. I'd love to see it. I think it'd be a great icebreaker, but you can simply sit there and just watch your belly expand as you inhale and exhale and just notice the difference. And I know for me, it just gets me back in my body, gets me out of the trillion thoughts going through my head and back in my body. I'm like, oh, I'm just upset because they said something that I don't agree with, but that's all right. It just allows you to reframe things and be less reactionary. For me, it's almost like a slow motion camera is in play. I'm not ready to, I know when I need to meditate, if I'm snapping at someone or wanting to have a knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, what are you doing? Like, no, you don't need to do that. Okay, it's time to meditate.
Yeah, no, that's a really great awareness piece to have. Absolutely. It takes practice to get there though. So
it definitely takes practice. Yes. And that's why I like just starting with breath, because some people get, intimidated by the word meditation and they're like, oh yeah, that's not for me, or I can't do it. Just breathe. That's really what meditation is, but just try doing a few long, slow, deep inhales. Just try counting. I know a lot of women at this age as well have trouble sleeping. So one of the things I recommend is if you're wide awake in the middle of the night, just try counting your breaths. There's box breathing where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, you hold for 4. Just try that. You can also count up. Inhale 1, exhale 1, inhale 2, exhale 2, inhale. Usually by the time you get up to 9, you will be sleepier. You'll at least not be in your head. Having the counting can be helpful as well, just to kind of get you out of there and again, back in the body, breathing. And that oxygen, that does good things for you. Yeah. You actually have oxygen circulating through your body, and we get tense. I know for me, I can barely breathe. I'm tense. I'm in my chest, and then when I take a deep breath, I'm like, oh, wow, where have I been? So
yeah, exactly.
Cheap, easy, great stress reducers is bring that breath with you everywhere you go.
Yeah. And thankfully we don't have to carry a big piece of luggage with us.
Exactly.
That's so good. So good. So food, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, like this diet or that diet or all these different fad diets, but when I was learning how to eat, for me, one great tool that served me well was eating for your blood type. And it wasn't so much that I followed the diet. It was more or less me understanding what foods I could experiment with. Because even some of the things on their list for my specific blood type that were approved or, highly recommended, I still can't digest. Mm-hmm. So, but when you get to that point where you can kind of like get on that level playing field with your body, and you can start actually listening to how it's responding to the fuel that you're putting into it. It helped me understand, you know, what foods it liked, which ones it didn't, but the Eat for Your Blood Type was a really great guide, a tool, and they have apps now and all kinds of things. So I found that very useful. I'm not sure if you've dug into any of that research at all, but I found it very useful for me.
Yeah, I have looked at some of that, but everything you're saying is spot on. Like, you're noticing how you're feeling. Some things on the list were good for you and some weren't as good. And I think that's it. And I know that can be a little tricky for people who are just starting off and they're like, oh, where do I begin? And
I can't eat anything.
I know. And it's, I always say you can never go wrong with eating food that looks like food. I mean,
Yeah.
if it looks like it's growing from the ground versus manufactured in a plant, your body's going to have an easier time digesting that. And not only that, will it have an easier time to digest, it's going to have more nutrients when it looks like food that is growing from the ground versus things that are prepackaged and have a label and have words you can't pronounce on it. Your body can't break that stuff down. It's manufactured. So if it looks like it just came out of the ground, anything without a label, doesn't come in a bag. Those are the most nutrient dense, easiest time for your body to process. And, you know, I do say as women over 40, especially, to watch out just for the extra toxins. So you don't have to buy everything organic, but eat as best you can. In at least the Dirty Dozen list, you may have heard of the Environmental Working Group has the Dirty Dozen list, which is 12 vegetables with the most amount of toxins and pesticides. And they're the things that you would think, like a strawberry is always on the list because there isn't much of a skin, versus an avocado is on their Clean 15, which is the least amount because it has that really thick skin around it. So it's shielding it from any of the pesticides and toxins in the air. Yeah. So just as women, especially at this age, we really need to watch those toxins. And there's things called xenoestrogens, which are these fake estrogens that can be found in skincare products and hair care and pots and pans. Those are the things that mimic our hormones, but they aren't, and our body has a hard time processing them. And then we have the hormone fluctuations as well. I love Environmental Working Group, who I just mentioned, ewg.skindeep. Before I buy any product that goes onto my body, I mean, your skin's your biggest organ in your body. So if you're putting lotion on there and it's got toxins in that goes right into your bloodstream. So they have you can put any product in there, any like skincare, hair care, and they will give you a rating for it. And they have started using labels on certain products, so you know that they're less toxins and all of that.
That's with ewg.skindeep.
Correct.
Awesome.
I think it's a .org. Yeah.
Okay.
EWG Skin Deep. You could even just Google EWG Environmental Worker Group Skin Deep. But they're a great resource for just, you know, making sure. There's just so many toxins in the air. Again, our body's a filter. And when we put extra stuff in, and we're already breathing the air, I mean, there's only so much we can do with our air. So, you know, drilling down into our food, into our skincare, all of that makes a huge difference.
I listened to a podcast earlier this week, and they were just talking about we have so many of us walk around with the toxic overload because of these things. Yep. You know, our environments, the things we put on our bodies, toothpaste, like the foods we eat, even just the electronic magnetic frequencies. Like, we're all stuck in front of our computers. We got these crazy LED lights, which I don't know, you know, all the things, like, we're not actually getting out into the earth, and we're just too busy to be doing the things that are going to serve us well, right? So we have to look at whatever possible fashion we can to limit that toxic overload. It's
so true. And yeah, I mean, just turning your router off overnight is a huge thing. I do that every night. Some people put them on a timer. Like you said, getting out in nature is so important. It's just, I don't know about you, but I can't be super mad when I'm next to a tree or I'm looking at the ocean or my feet are in the grass. I mean, it just, I'm fortunate. I live near a beach. So whenever I've had a bad day, I go and watch the sunset, and it just kind of puts everything in perspective. And then the earth does have an energy to it, and putting your feet actually to touch grass or sand or something or dirt gives you, I don't know about you, it just makes me feel rebalanced. So take a deep breath outside, and that's just double duty fabulousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Some it's water and sandy beaches, and some it's mountains and pine trees. So
yes, exactly. Or snow. I hear some people like snow. I am not one of them.
I'm not a fan, even though I am a Canadian and I get lots of it, but not a fan. Yeah, that's where the seasonal disorder comes in for a lot of us, right? Because you don't get outside, you don't get the vitamin D, the days are shorter, and it becomes really hard on people. So you got to find other ways to kind of balance your happy meter, I guess.
Yeah. And the one other thing I usually include with the happy meter is just connection with other people, because as you age as well, sometimes your worlds can be a little smaller. So it's to, again, make sure you're connecting with other people. And obviously we've had some rough times lately. So making sure you have that human interaction in some form or fashion. I mean, there are studies about how it is great for your health. It will improve your health. And, you know, they say loneliness is like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It can have the same detrimental effect. So make sure to reach out, and even if you're just helping someone you don't know, that can make a big impact.
Yeah, well, we're not meant to be alone. We're created for community. We thrive better, and we can support one another and lift each other up, and we're not meant to be alone. So definitely reach out. And I think that's one of the biggest motivators of me creating this community, is because I seen a need, and I wanted to create a safe and loving space for women to come in and feel heard and seen, and to build relationships, authentic ones, not just like, hey, here's my filter and here's my clean house that you only see the one corner. You're not going to see the rest of it. Yes. Right. So you can be real and authentic with people in this space. And that was my biggest heart, is to have that connection with others and to provide.
Well, you've done a great job with that. You've built a beautiful community. So thank you for letting me come and share with your community.
I very much appreciate you coming and sharing. I think everything that you're laying down here today they're simple, inexpensive ways to be able to take your health to a whole nother level. In the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, there is cheat sheets inside the Healthy Body section of the app. So if you don't want to Google it, if you want to just download a nice little cheat sheet, there is some really nice guides, quick and easy guides there for you to be able to print off or download, to keep it easy for you. Because it is important. There are certain things in our eating that we need to be more mindful of when it comes to all the pesticides and all the junk that they put on to mass produce.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to eat organic across the board, but if you can focus on specifics, then it does take it to a whole nother level. So
it's true. It really does. You don't want to be trying to eat really well and then putting the pesticides on top of it to counter it out. So you make the choices where you can.
Yeah. And you're like, this isn't working for me. But then it's all the toxicity that we're putting into our system. They're just like, and then our bodies start to, if we have that toxic overload, that our body thinks that it's protecting itself as it creates these fat cells within, to guard our organs and to, keep our energy reserves up, or whatever the case may be. But it's that toxic overload that's causing us to store the fat, thinking our body's protecting us, which is so not. So if we can eliminate the toxins, our body won't have the need to protect it by storing all the fats. So
yes, it is a vicious cycle. And sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming. You're like, food and toxins and this. And I just always suggest, starting with one area. And then when you get one area locked in, then, once you get your food dialed in, then you look at your skincare, and, then maybe you look at your water filters. But you don't have to do everything overnight, but what can you
No.
do, once a day? What can you do to ground yourself and just to feel better in your body? And,
Yeah.
even if it's just sitting and breathing or going outside or something like that to make you feel a little better and healthier.
Yeah, taking those mindful steps, right? You don't want to get to the point where you do have to turn your world upside down because of disease or something else that's coming into your life that you just can't process without having to eliminate everything. That's what happened to me because all my blood was caked together. I was 3 points away from needing a pacemaker because there was so much stress going on in my body. I had to eliminate everything. I couldn't chew gum. I literally had 5 things that I could eat for about 7 months. And then when the doctor says, you can have turkey today, I celebrated. I cooked me a turkey. It was plus 30 outside. That's that's Celsius. So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but I did not care. I was like, I get me a bird, I'm cooking it.
That's great.
So, but
and that's a great reminder too. I always tell people that like it's better to take little small steps now so you avoid having to dig yourself out of the really bad hole and come up from really far down. But it's just the little steps, the little everyday steps that can make such a big difference.
Absolutely. Oh, this has been so good, Kelly. Thank you so much for sharing today. So if there's anyone here in the community that wants to jump in and get a hold of you and work with you in some way, shape, or form, what is it that you have to offer and how do they get in touch with you?
Well, I do offer one-on-one coaching for women over 40 to kind of address all of the things to make them feel better in mind and body, from diet to stress to I'll meditate with you and we'll get into all of that fun stuff. And then I have a website, tastingpage.com, tasting as in I am your official taster. And I have a free guide for you over some of the things I talked about here, avoiding midlife weight gain, of just some of the things that are happening in your body, some ways to combat it, and then a bunch of healthy recipes to keep you inspired.
Oh, I love that. I have lots of recipes. I love food, but I shared with you prior to our conversing here. I really don't like being in the kitchen. So
you want the food to appear.
Yes, I'm like, make this.
It's your husband, he'll help out.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, this has been fabulous. So definitely your website, I'll put a link here in the bottom of the video so people can access your website. Do you have social media handles?
Tasting page all the way across the board. Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. And then the coaching 101, do they have an option to just connect with you first to see if you would be a good fit? Do you have like a
yes,
short
discovery? There's a free intro call and we just chat about your health goals and I tell you about how I work and my program and we see if it's a fit before you have to sign up for anything.
That's beautiful. I love coaches that do that because not everybody is a good fit for everybody, right? We all have
absolutely. I want it to be a fit both ways. Absolutely.
Yes. Otherwise, you're not going to get the benefits of what Kelly has to teach if you can't relate or connect with her, right? So it's really good to have that connection. But she looks to me to be like, even just having this conversation with you today is just like, oh yeah, like you've got such a peaceful nature about you. Like who wouldn't fall in love with you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing today. I very much appreciate it. I will put your free guide in the app beside with your video so that people can easily access it. And yeah, I hope you come back and stick around and continue to share your expertise here in the space.
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Thanks, Kelly.